All right, so Mr. Riggs here. Without further ado, here's your first video edit of your first essay. And so this will be how this rolls throughout the semester, like I said. As you receive projects and writing assignments, you're going to upload, just like you did, so great job, into your personal Google folder. And then I take it, read it, and edit it, and then provide you with some of my thoughts on how to move the ball down the field and improve your great writing skills that you already have. You're a dynamic writer. There are things here about writing that are just hard to teach. So I'm excited to say that your strengths as a writer come naturally as you've grown as a writer, and anything that's a weakness that I've identified here, things we can work on. So that is good news. So let's just get underway. I'm going to try to keep this video to about 10 minutes. And so I do recommend you, please make sure you watch this entire thing, take notes, and just commit yourself to this process, right? We have those 3 C's that we talked about for the workshop. We have create, right? That's what you've done here. We have critique, which is what I'm providing. And then collaboration, which is you taking my edits and suggestions and folding them in. And where I can learn from you, I'm going to do the same thing. So let's get underway here. First big thing, just to kind of clarify, from here on out, what I would highly recommend you to do is avoid these fonts that look bold. Stick with Times New Roman or Helvetica. I know that seems really kind of lame and particular. To make sure I'm not going into this and wasting a bunch of time, at the end of the day, just know when you get into college and you start to submit tons of papers, if you give a professor a paper that has this kind of bold font, they're not going to take it. They're just going to hand it back to you and say, rewrite this, make it better. So I'm not going to do that to you, but please make sure that you stick with Times New Roman or Helvetica, which is just up here in the font column, right? Okay, so that kind of thing out of the way now. Great introductory paragraph and super clear thesis. This tends to be the hardest thing for people, to come up with a clear thesis and then argue for it. And then as well, great job with the block method with your paper. So, and this has a lot of other strengths. I want to talk about them at some point, but I want to make sure I reserve this time to talk about things to work on for next time. So with the introductory paragraph, remember that when we're thinking about the reader, this is the only shot you have to pique the reader's curiosity and hook them, to get them into it. Now, I know sometimes when you're told what to write, that can be difficult, but with any writing assignment, I believe, because I've had to do it myself, you can create an interesting way to pull the reader in, and then the rest of your essay, the body, right, gives them reasons to stick around. So make sure you think through that lens with any essay. How am I going to use this introductory paragraph to bring the reader in and encourage them to stick around for what's coming up? So that said, your first original sentence, with the events of 9/11 being so impactful, many things have changed, such as security and communication. That's honestly not a bad sentence. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but it's not a bad sentence. What I did was I took your ideas, the things that you already said, and I drew them out, because most of the time when we write, what we find out is that we're burying a lot of our key points under lots of words that don't need to be there. So, for instance, with this first chunk, you said, with the events of 9/11 being so impactful, 2 things there. When we start a sentence, let alone a whole essay, with this word with, which is called a conjunction. Conjunctions are joining words. That is why they're on planet Earth. They join words and phrases and sentences together. They're like a nail or glue or whatever, right? And when you look at a piece of artwork or a building or a table or something, right, no one's trying to draw your attention to the nail or to the glue, right? But when we start a sentence or an essay with the word with, or the word and, or the word so, or anything like that, it's kind of like we're trying to focus on the glue or the nail and not the actual piece of art, right? So what I did was I took your idea here with the events of 9/11 being so impactful, and I just brought it out to daylight. I said, many things in America changed because of the events of 9/11. You said that already. So great job. I just wanted to show you what would happen when you brought it closer and sooner to the reader by putting it in the sentence right away. Secondly, the last part of your sentence, which you had actually made its own sentence, and that's something to watch out for, is when you have, I think originally it looked like this with a period in the capital S. Make sure that when you are thinking about what makes for a full sentence, that you are avoiding what's called a fragment sentence. A full sentence has to have a verb in it. So just make sure you keep that in mind for next time. But also, this is your thesis, right? So you're stating a lot of things changed in America because of 9/11. But specifically, security and communication are the things that have had the most drastic impact. That's the whole point for your essay. But because you had it at the very end here as this kind of second thought following this one, I felt like it was not hitting the reader as quickly as it should. So I just moved it to the very beginning of the next sentence for you and said communication and airport security have had the most drastic changes, right? Boom. Clear thesis. It's out in broad daylight. Everyone can see it and not be confused, right? Like I said, I'm not going to go through every edit. Please go through and make sure you click on each of these things, and that'll bring up the note that corresponds with it, just to see what I did, where I did it, why I did it, okay? Next thing, just real fast, because I think it is a habit, because it came up a few times in this paper. I got a few more minutes here. The verb had. The verb had is what we call a helping verb. Okay, its main job most of the time. So see how the word have helps the word had, right? To communicate a whole idea. So most of the time they can't, or they don't do the best job communicating an entire idea, right? We have this dynamic English language with tons of verbs. So what I want to encourage you with is when you write the word had, when it's a main verb like you have here, I want to encourage you to ask yourself, what other verbs could go here that are more vivid or more dynamic or have more energy to them than just the verb had? Again, it's not wrong. It's not this like writing sin to have the word had in there. But because it comes up so much, I really want to encourage you to paint a little bit more clear of a picture by replacing the verb had with a stronger one, like experienced or encountered or obtained. You know, sky's the limit there, so go for it. So one other thing I wanted to make sure I highlighted, and then frankly the rest of this is just kind of for you to look at and consider, is this came up a few times, but it's you confuse a pronoun with the antecedent. Now the antecedent, again, is the noun that the pronoun's pointing back to in some place, right? So if I said the boy ate his ice cream, right? His is a pronoun pointing back to the antecedent of the boy. But in this sentence, getting a pilot's license was also fairly easy since they didn't do thorough enough background checks. This they is kind of off on its own. There's no noun that it can connect to, right? So it won't connect to airplanes, it won't connect to pilot's license, it won't connect to plane. Who are they? Who do you mean, right? You probably mean the instructors or the flight schools, right? So make sure you say that. So the flight schools. Okay? So just to kind of put that out there for you. And then the rest is pretty similar, whether it's just removing something that didn't do its job per se, or you didn't need it, or thinking about those verbs had for other ones. I want to make sure that we're thinking about replacement verbs for those, and not just the verb had, but lots of other verbs can be exchanged for clear ones. Okay. Last one, and this is just kind of an essay rule in general. Make sure in places like this, bag checks are also very extensive, especially if you have closed cases in your bags. Avoid second person pronouns like you and your, because the reader, you're not coaching the reader to do something, right? They're reading information you're providing. You need to stick with what's called a third person pronoun. So it's the they, them, their, that kind of thing. Or just use common nouns like passengers, okay? So make sure we avoid those second person pronouns in essays. I have some notes down here for you to check out. But those are a few of the things that I would recommend working on. But great job on this overall. I'm 12 seconds over, so I'm going to put a period in this myself.